Israeli. Josh is a former analyst in Middle East affairs at the Congressional Research Service, a federal government agency providing members of Congress with policy analysis. And we're glad to welcome him here.
Crimes which are being committed against the Palestinian people, most specifically in the Gaza Strip today, and we have much to be outraged by these attacks, by these crimes, but we have as much to be outraged by the actions of our government. Let's be honest, we need to lay the blame where it belongs for the perpetuation of Israel's oppression of the Palestinian people, and that is at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. It is inconceivable that Israel would be allowed to get away with what it gets away with without the nearly unconditional military, diplomatic, and political support that we provide to it. And as American taxpayers, and as American citizens, and as decent human beings, we must be outraged by this support. Now, what we've seen from the Obama administration and from Congress over the past more than a month of these massacres and war crimes has been not a break in U.S. policy, but a continuation of that policy. A continuation of a policy which has backed this brutal and illegal collective punishment in the form of a blockade on the Gaza Strip for now 8 years. It's a continuation of a policy which has provided nearly unlimited support for Israel's illegal military occupation of the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, for 47 years. And it is a policy which has provided nearly unlimited support for Israel perpetuating and maintaining the rotten fruits of its ethnic cleansing of 1948 and the dispossession of the Palestinian people from their indigenous homes. Now, the State Department hasn't said that Israel is committing massacres. The State Department hasn't said that Israel is committing war crimes. The State Department has said that Israel is acting in self-defense. And when a journalist at a daily State Department briefing questioned whether Palestinians might actually also have the right of self-defense, this is what the State Department said, that it was, quote, offensive. It was offensive to consider that Palestinians might have the right of self-defense. John Kerry, our esteemed Secretary of State, called Israel's actions, quote, appropriate and legitimate. Appropriate and legitimate. The United States was the only country in the entire world to vote against the UN Human Rights Council establishing a commission of inquiry which would look into the actions not only of Israel, but of Hamas as well. Why did the State Department vote against this resolution? According to the Obama administration, it was, quote, one-sided and unbalanced. And when President Obama expresses concerns about Palestinian civilian casualties, he is crying crocodile tears. Because the reality is that he has allowed Israel to draw from U.S. stockpiles of weapons in Israel the same 120-millimeter artillery shells and 40-millimeter grenade launchers that Israel has been using to such devastating effect to commit these war crimes in the first place. You cannot sympathize with civilian fatalities when you are responsible for them. both the weapons to successfully defend themselves against these flimsy Palestinian rockets in the form of Iron Dome, which according to the Israeli military has a 90% success rate. Israelis face virtually no danger from these rockets. Yet, on the other hand, we provide Israel more than $3.1 billion in our taxpayer dollars every year to provide Israel, get this, since 2000, more than 800 million weapons and rounds of ammunition. The F-16 fighter jets, the Apache helicopter gunships, the Hellfire missiles, the Joint Direct Attack munitions, the naval gunboats, all of these are paid for by us, making us directly complicit in these crimes. But today something very interesting happened if you read the Wall Street Journal. Today something happened that actually hasn't happened since 1982. And that was the United States froze the delivery of a particular weapon system to Israel. The Obama administration has now frozen the supply of these Hellfire missiles to the state of Israel and agreed to scrutinize future weapons transfers at the highest level of the administration. Now, let's be very clear about why this turning point has occurred. Is it because President Obama woke up this morning and discovered that he had a backbone? Did the people of the United States wake up and decide that its foreign policy would be based on morality? This is not how politics work. The reason why we are seeing something that hasn't occurred since 1982 is because of your efforts. Is because of the fact that hundreds of thousands of Americans have been out on the street protesting vigorously our support for Israel's war crimes against the Palestinians. It's because we are invisible and we will not be silenced. This is how things change. Now, what do we do to continue to build upon this growing strength? The fact that more and more of U.S. public opinion is with us and agrees, especially the youth. Especially the youth. What do we do to build upon this? Number one, we have to do what the late, great Palestinian intellectual, Professor Edward Said, asked us to do. And that's to speak about Palestine everywhere and talk about it to everyone. We need to talk about it in our schools. We need to talk about it in our labor unions. We need to talk about it in our mosques. We need to talk about it in our churches. And yeah, we need to talk about it in our synagogues as well. Because the reality of the situation is that Israel's war crimes against the Palestinian people are wrong regardless of the religion of the people of that country. It would be wrong if the people of Israel were Muslim or Christian or Hindu or atheist or none of the above. Because war crimes are war crimes and they are illegal. So in addition to speaking about Palestine everywhere and forcing this issue and keeping Israel's apologists on their back heels, which they clearly are, Israel has clearly lost the debate. Its supporters in the United States have clearly lost control of the discourse. In addition to this, I know this might not be so popular in New York City. Is Anthony Weiner here by any chance? No, Anthony didn't show up, who denies the fact that there is an Israeli occupation. Well, this might not be such a popular thing to say in New York City, but the reality is that we need to engage our public officials and tell them enough is enough. If we don't, if we shrug our shoulders and we give up, if we say the Israel lobby is too strong and too powerful, then what's the dynamic that we've created? We've created a dynamic where the only people who our members of Congress are hearing from are people who are in the Israel lobby. And now some of you might consider the traditional forms of lobbying a little too tame for your likes. Let 1,000 flowers bloom. I think you all know how to step up the tactics and step up the tactics we need to do. Now, when we did this congressional briefing, which you just saw Layla speak at, I went into the hall. We actually had so many people attend that we actually ran 2 briefings in a row to accommodate everyone who wanted to hear about what was actually going on in Gaza. And in the break between, I went out in the hall, and who did I run into but Representative Eliot Engel of New York City. I don't think he'll be in the House tonight. And I said to him, Representative Engel, it is time to end military aid to Israel. And he looked at me kind of shocked. Like he didn't hear me correctly. He's like, did you say end aid to Israel? No, I support increasing aid to Israel. And I told him that he had the blood of hundreds of Palestinian children on his hands. And you know what he did? He just shrugged it off and got on the elevator. Another day of business in Congress. So we've got to work on our elected officials, and we've got our work cut out for us, that's for sure. But the other thing we need to do is we need to listen and respond to what Palestinians are asking us to do to help them lift the boot of oppression off of their necks. And that's to engage in campaigns of boycott, divestment, and sanctions. Because let me be very clear about something. Israel has to pay a price for what it's doing. It has to pay a price. Otherwise, there's no motivation on its part to change these brutal policies. And we make it pay a price by engaging in cultural boycotts. We make it pay a price through academic boycotts. We make it pay a price when our institutions divest their funds, often from U.S. corporations, which are profiteering off of Israel's oppression of the Palestinian people. Because the reality, when you look at the end of apartheid in South Africa, it wasn't until white South African society had paid that price, had become international pariahs, that policy change was possible. And I'm convinced that we are seeing that very same process occur right now. And I know for certain, that it's only after Israel ends its separate and unequal apartheid policies toward the Palestinian people can we begin to even think about having a just and lasting peace. Thank you very much.